What's up, everybody? I'm Nehemiah Frank, founder, editor-in-chief, and the publisher of the Black Wall Street Times. And this is my amazing host,
Andrew, aka Mr. Earthy Birth. How you doing today?
And this is Black Ink inside the Black Wall Street Times, a news publication that is rooted in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But of course, we broadcast this thing all across the nation. So you might be anywhere in the country and you're listening to us. And actually, we work remotely, so we're also across the country too. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing good. Chock full of news today, but how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about starting this, I guess you can call it a podcast, a vidcast of some sort, where we're actually coming on Substack and all of the things and talking to you about some of our latest articles that we're publishing at the Black Wall Street Times, and then having discussions around what's happening across the country.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I guess we can just go ahead and jump right on into it. This is our first episode. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the share button.
Yeah, on that note, we did just launch our online store. So if we can get at least 10 paid subscribers during this for the Black Wall Street Times, we are going to be doing a t-shirt giveaway or some sort of merch giveaway. So if you're not a paid subscriber, join as a paid subscriber to help support the newsroom.
Amazing. All right, so let's get started. So Tulsa officer removed, a Tulsa police officer removed a Black man from a bar. And the reason why we brought this story up is because recently there was a whole curfew situation after the Juneteenth festival. There was a shooting at the Juneteenth festival this year. And to remind everyone, we have never had this type of violence at any type of festival in Tulsa. So this is the first time where we have a shooting incident where multiple people are hit with bullets, people taken to the hospital. One person actually lost their life. The good thing is that both of the perpetrators who had the guns have been arrested by the Tulsa Police Department. Anyways, this ended up leading to a curfew being passed in the city by the councilors. I want to say it happened the very next week to try to curb the tale of the gun violence. But the issue with the curfew is that it only applies to the age up to 17 or to just, the day before you turn 18. It no longer applies to you. So it's pretty much for 18 and under. One of the biggest issues that the community was worried about was that this will lead to more racial profiling. Now, Tulsa has done some amazing leaps and bounds over the last few years. We had a centennial a few years back that recognized the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, in which we actually had police officers deputizing the white mob. And so there has never really been I don't know, I would say a trusted history between the Tulsa Police Department and Tulsa's Black community. And that is the reason why a lot of the community was very concerned about passing this youth curfew. They thought that it would heighten the racial profiling in the city. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this video. Just 1 second and get it queued up.
Let's go. Talk to him right here, bro. I ain't gotta snatch him away like that.
I'm giving you an opportunity.
It's too late for the scene. It's already made.
So the thing that happened here that I found interesting, Andrew, when I was watching this video, and a friend actually had called and said, "Hey, did you see the video on TikTok?" And I didn't even know what was going on. It was my birthday this weekend, so I was just trying to celebrate that and kind of, not necessarily pay attention to what was happening in the news. But this is concerning, if he's sitting down with his friends. And of course, we don't know all of the details. Our journalists are actually still working on this story. And so hopefully we'll have some more details about what happened. But pretty much he was just sitting down at this bar with some friends. He's clearly over the age of 18. And then there's an exchange that kind of gets a little intense with the Tulsa Police Department. He actually ends up getting up and having to go outside. So we'll listen in a little bit more.
But like, what's going on? If we can watch him record, why can't you just talk to him right here? Why do we have? What's the point of having to watch him record?
I'm gonna walk over there anyways.
You don't have to touch me though.
I'm not gonna touch you. Just walk over here.
Y'all don't have to touch me. Don't put your hands on me. You ain't gotta walk over there either. You can just talk to him right here. Hey, somebody come with me.
No, I got you.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why is it just me? Somebody come with me.
I got you.
You want to do this? Like, what we doing? Hey, right here. Hey, come on now. Like, what we doing?
So there's a lot of questions that definitely need to be asked for transparency for those who do not live in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is actually an open carry state. So this young man, who clearly looks like he's above the age of 18, could have a gun, right? As long as he's not a convicted felon, he can have a gun on him legally in the state of Oklahoma because it is an open carry state.
Yeah, and as you said, I think you look at all the people on that patio. Well, why is he the one being approached? What are they questioning him for? I saw a lot of people on that patio that could possibly be young.
Bro, ask him the question. What question you gotta ask? I literally died from police in this city. Do you not think I'm gonna be intimidated or scared? Like, why is this going on? Terrence Crutcher, look him up. Terrence Crutcher. Answer my question. Like, ask me your question. What do you want?
So for more context for those who are listening across the country, and it's so nice actually, Andrew, to see the amount of people that we have watching on Substack. So our Substack is growing, y'all. Please get on our Substack and join it. If you're looking at this live stream from one of the other platforms, we are now on Substack. It is probably our biggest platform. We're actually getting more views on our Substack account than we actually get on our regular Black Wall Street Times website. And so we're actually approaching 1 million views a month. So that's one of the reasons why we're starting to have these types of video conversations. But for context, Terrence Crutcher was a father and a twin brother and a son and a Tulsa Community College student living in North Tulsa. He had a situation a few years back where he was having some car issues. He ended up being shot while unarmed, while having his hands up by a Tulsa police officer. And it sparked a movement because his sister came back to Tulsa. She ended up doing all of these incredible things. Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, she now leads as executive director of the Terrence Crutcher Foundation, which actually fights against police brutality, among a bunch of other initiatives. So that's who he was referencing, was Terrence Crutcher, who was shot.
And as you can hear the people videoing saying, it's like, why are there so many cops? Is this just like one cop walking through a patio at a bar and deciding to talk to him? Did somebody call them? Why is there so many people here?
I think that is also a good question. I don't know if that has something to do with the fact that the curfew passed, and now we have a larger police presence to try to curb around the bars at nighttime. But right. I mean, if you're not 21, you're not going into any of these spaces, clearly.
Yeah, and for me, one of the just simple thoughts is if this many cops can respond to this simple case at this one bar right now, how much of a demand right now is there actually to be having to enforce the curfew versus,
for one
again,
person,
like you
that's
said,
what I'm saying. Like, why do we have all these people, all these cops for one person?
How many teenagers are you actually seeing just hanging out on the streets like this, or are you actually approaching people with no context like this more often than not?
No, they were gonna fucking take his ass over anyway.
So the thing that I'm happy about is that they had it on camera, right? Who knows what would have happened if there was not a camera?
Yeah.
Things always get scary, especially if it's at nighttime. You're in the South, right? Having an encounter with a police officer is always scary, really, no matter what race you are. But he definitely had reason to be nervous based on the statistics from the Tulsa police about the Tulsa Police Department.
Yeah. And again, that's just, you could even just consider that, one-on-one interactions. When you're surrounded 15, 20 to 1 like that, it's intimidating in every way.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next story. We're going to keep following this story, you guys. Like I said, one of our journalists is actually working on that story right now, and we'll probably have a story out about this later on this week. And so next up, we have missing kid. And actually, it's not a missing kid. This kid was actually detained by ICE. He's a Morehouse college student right now. And he's actually being detained in Texas, which is extremely unfortunate. I can imagine that his mother is probably extremely terrified for him. His name is Alex Maganda. He's a Morehouse College graduate and former football player. He was detained by ICE near Dallas, Texas, and is currently being held at the Blue Bonnet Detention Facility in Assen. His arrest has sparked widespread concern and activism with the HBCU community, alumni, classmates, and advocates, particularly from Morehouse in Spelman and Atlanta, Georgia, have launched a social media campaign, Free Alex Manganda, raised awareness and helped him retain legal counsel. His case highlights the broader issues of racial profiling and the disproportionate impact of immigration enforcement on Black immigrants in the U.S. And so, the reason why I wanted to bring this story up is because I had wrote a story earlier this week, or actually last week I wrote a story that did extremely well on Substack. I want to say it had like 16, maybe 17,000 reads on Substack. And it was about linking. And if you're familiar with my writing, you know that I've tried to link the past to the present. And so once they started detaining folks, saying if you're undocumented, if you don't have any type of documentation or IDs, you will be detained. And it's not illegal to walk around without an ID, right? And so that actually reminded me of slavery. When you during institutional slavery, people would actually have to walk around. Enslaved people would have to walk around with papers. Otherwise, they could be detained. They could be even kidnapped and sent far away from their families. And so that was something that kind of reminded me of what's happening now. Immigrant families, workers going out to work, maybe even going to court or going to church, and they disappear. They don't end up going back home. And they end up sometimes in a whole nother country, which is absolutely terrifying. And so I felt for this young man. I don't think that we should be moving through the world thinking that this does not affect Black people. This affects all people of color, that, you can be racially profiled and you can be detained by ICE. And Alex's situation is proof of that. He is an HBCU student at one of our premium institutions in Black America, Morehouse. And so I would say just keep praying for this young man. Hopefully his counsel will be strong enough to be able to get him out of this situation.
Yeah, I think this is, one of the hardest parts about what's happening right now with ICE and all the detainees, because, there's certain names that get highlighted like Kimar Abrego Garcia, and then there's so many stories like this that just get lost under the radar. But as you mentioned, I think one of the biggest things we have to take away from it is we can all agree, no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on at this point, that it's not just criminals being affected. Even if that's what you were told initially that they were going to be going after, it's already, we'll talk about Alligator Alcatraz in a little bit, which I've written several stories on, but it's already right now still confirmed that less than 15% of the people in Alligator Alcatraz have confirmed criminal records. And so who those other people are is extremely important, and to keep telling those stories.
That's good. And speaking of that, so I figured that we should probably just go ahead and talk about Alligator Alcatraz. And I just, not to toot our horn, on Substack, we have been in the top 100 out of like millions of Substack accounts. We've actually been in the top 100, actually the top 20 of Substack accounts to follow. And you were actually the first to break the news about Alligator Alcatraz before any other major news outlet did. And so, just to be honest with y'all, this has happened a couple of times with the Black Wall Street Times. And it's so crazy because a lot of folks in Oklahoma, y'all be sleeping on the Black Wall Street Times. But there are people across the nation, including executive producers at networks like NBC, who are following us because we do groundbreaking work. So let's just go ahead. You want to go ahead and kind of talk about the story of Alcatraz before we
and on that note, I do want to, again, that's one of those things that one of the things I love about working with the Black Wall Street Times is that, you know, it's not just journalism, but we are really working with the people on the ground that are living these stories or advocating for these stories or defending the people in these stories. And so when it comes to news, you know, even me and Dion were talking about this at one point, that when you look at our network of information and the people we're communicating with on a day-to-day basis, often it's very clear that we're at least 2-3 days ahead of mainstream news and what we're seeing. It's because they're real stories. It's not just regurgitating a tweet or something like that. It's really the people going through it. And what made me start writing about Alligator Alcatraz was the activists on the ground going live as those trucks were coming in to start building the facility, and nothing was built yet. It was just a hearsay rumor at that point, but I knew that we could trust those people that were on the ground in our network. And so that's one of the reasons we were so early on this story. But to get into it again, it was about, we can just really start with July. July 1st is when Trump, it went to visit it. It really blew up on the global radar of what this place was, that it popped up in all of 8 days. And I think one of the biggest things that drove me crazy and even surprised me when I found out is how we have so audaciously watched people who need emergency relief and disaster relief be rejected of that relief, and then finding out FEMA funds were helping build this camp so quickly. And, obviously it's not the emergency relief fund. They're using like the housing and shelter fund, but still FEMA money is FEMA money. And there are people that need that housing and shelter more than we need to be putting these people in these camps. And so
ready to go into hurricane season too. So
yes. And that's one of the things, I immediately, when I saw where they were building this, I grew up in Georgia. And as you know, you live in Atlanta too. One thing I remember vividly in middle school and high school is rolling into fall, knowing that we were going to get an increased amount of days that might just be off because of severe weather. Right. And they know what they're doing by putting these people in those areas, and that plausible deniability for them, whether, I saw somebody say it really eloquently, but it's worth saying that, it doesn't have to have a gas chamber to be a concentration camp.
Wow.
And I think that's what we have to start acknowledging about places like this, is that the burden of torture doesn't even have to just be in how people treat people. It's putting them in danger that they know is there. And that plausible deniability for Mother Nature should not be excused at all, whether it's a hurricane that comes through and clean sweeps that camp, or they're slowly just torturing these people and putting them through unbearable situations. But I think that's one of the things that stood with me the most, is that they know exactly where they're putting these people and pitching it in their marketing. Like, it's all about that, from the merch to just how inescapable this place is. Yeah. But they know what they're doing when they're saying these things. So again, it moved really fast, and we do have groups on the ground at this point that, we do have a video even of Debbie Wasserman Schultz going through, I think we're going to show, but there are advocacy groups at this point that are suing and trying to challenge even just the food conditions and the things that they were setting up. But after we've now had some representatives go through there, we know that it's between 30 to 37, 38 people per cage. Wow. And if you saw early on, it was within 4 days, I think, of them finally building it, that it flooded on heavy rains. And that was before they even put anybody in there. And then 2 days later, they were moving people in there without solving any of those problems. So if we want to, let's go ahead and show that Debbie Wasserman Schultz video. I think she goes through some of the details of kind of what the conditions looked like from their tour. And I think it gives us a little bit more.
Got it. No.
Alligator Alcatraz. And as we expected, it's worse than we thought.
This entire tour, it was repeated over and over that the state is working hand in glove with ICE. This facility was inspected by ICE. They review their detention standards. They are using cages. These detainees are living in cages. The pictures that you've seen don't do it justice. They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. That is the only thing inside those cages are their bunk beds, and there are 3 tiny toilets that are toilet units that have a sink attached to it. So they essentially drink, they get their drinking water and they brush their teeth, where they poop in the same unit. They bragged that they went above standards, supposedly, and gave them a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length inside the 32 detainee cage, a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length of the 3 toilets in a row. The showers provide no privacy at all. There are no curtains on it. It's a big open shower unit. There are, small walls in each shower, but we're talking about all 900 men who are held in this facility. It is built currently for 1,000, and they have no privacy at all when they're showering. For meals, when we walked through the quote unquote meal prep area, the kitchen area, for lack of a better term, they had the portions that were available for detainees, and they had the portions that were available for employees being prepared at the same time. The portions available for employees, large pieces of roast chicken, large sausages, and the detainees' lunches were a small, gray turkey and cheese sandwich, an apple, and chips, and that's it. We're talking about fully grown men being fed very small portions.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz just toured Alligator Alcatraz.
So she didn't talk about it in that clip, but there also have already been confirmed reports. Multiple outlets reported, The Guardian reported on it, that there was mold in some of those sandwiches and even worms in some of those meals. And that's in the first days that these people were being fed. And I also think it's one of the things that's not being mentioned is the fact that even though this is a minimal built facility especially for where they're at, we talk about the endurance of weather, for example, it's just tents with cages if we're really talking about how fast they put it up. But they still, in spite of that, are going through the deliberate action of leaving on the lights 24/7. And so they really made sure that they could light up these tents nonstop, despite whether that's energy efficient or even humane is a different story. But the fact that, again, they're going out of their way in so many ways to make it inhumane is what I think drives me crazy talking about this story the most. And a story I'm writing about now, and trust me, I could talk for 2 hours on this alone, but another story I'm kind of looking into right now and investigating is the contracts ICE has to be able to contract these prisoners and these people that they're keeping in these camps out for labor for $1 a day. And so one of the reporters or journalists that I follow was talking about it. Why are they suddenly going after laborers and farm workers? Well, because really they have contracts and have the legal ability to go take those people and put them back in those same exact jobs for slave labor. And at that sort of price that doesn't have any protection from minimum wage or anything like that. And I think we have to stay ahead of what these intentions look like while they brag about the inhumanity of it. But the idea that they're also profiting off of these things and taking away government funds from emergency relief and disaster relief, you stack these things and it just becomes unforgivable and drives me crazy the more we talk about it. But anyway, you're muted, I think.
Definitely, I was muted. I wanted to make sure that my dogs didn't bark because I'm at home. So to interrupt you or to distract. So yeah, I'm happy that you chose to use that language, slavery. I'm not offended by you using that language. I think that that's what it is. And I think that, using words like concentration camp or using words like slavery, sometimes people can feel triggered by those words or But that's, it's language. If we're trying to humanize people, we have to be able to use language that is effective.
Yeah.
And institutional slavery, a new form of that, is what this is.
Yeah.
I saw Joy Reid mentioning this, and I remember when I was watching her discuss this on Instagram, I said that sounds like slavery. And then interestingly enough, like a second later, she's like, what do you think that is? Slavery. And that's exactly what that is. And so
and we know this is history, not to interrupt you, but on that deliberate term, this is just a sequel to the loopholes they left in the 13th Amendment after slavery when it came to indentured servitude and using people like this for slave labor. And so whether they add $1 to it or not, it's just a form of them to keep that legal loophole so they can do this thing for profit and for people who are privatizing that effort without taking care of the people. And so,
good.
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that point.
Yeah, that's good. So a question that I had, and you may not know the answer to it yet, perhaps you can look into it as well, is so if there is a hurricane that comes through the Florida Everglades, is like there an emergency plan? Like, how are they going to evacuate these people, and where do they go, since they were trying to save space?
Right. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen them talk about it. I don't think they want to talk about it. But if it looks anything like their meal plan, it probably involves evacuating employees and not necessarily prisoners. So in my mind, I think that's something that, anybody that we all need to be asking repetitively, and especially those people that are locals and know what that detriment is going to look like to those people, is just, what is the plan? What is the plan when we all need to be moving? What are you doing with those people?
Right. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to actually change gears a little bit. We're going to go to an interview between a CNN reporter and Oklahoma's good old Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. So let's check him out really fast, y'all.
The 37 murderers that he commuted their sentences. Remember, 2 of them, one that he pardoned, the one that he pardoned killed 2 FBI agents. Another one literally beat an officer to death with a hammer. And another one literally tied up a woman who had accused him of rape, tied her up in duct tape, put a center block around her, and threw her over a bridge live. And so you remember that the violence that he pardoned, and I'm just saying you got to compare both of them, Aaron. If you're going to cover the story, cover both stories.
So this is in response to Trump's recent pardon of more January 6 rioters, right? These are people who are actually beating police officers. In the case that some of them actually died, right? Some of them died. Some of them have PTSD, and they are still in treatment for that. Probably will be in treatment for the rest of their lives, and probably a whole bunch of other folks. But the one thing that I can tell you that I'm absolutely sick of is the Republicans still beating this drum. Biden lost the election, right? Trump is the president. And they're still going after him. And I don't understand why they continue to do that. The midterms are still a year away, right? So I don't know if they're just afraid or they're just trying to distract from what's happening with these ICE raids and these children, being handcuffed in Los Angeles, to folks being treated and living in inhumane conditions in Alligator, Alcatraz, in the Florida Everglades. But it just seems like a big distraction. But I wanted to bring this up because I have seen Senator Mark Wayne Mullen's social media accounts explode out of nowhere. Like, we actually used to have way more Twitter X followers than him, and suddenly he's just exploding. And I think, of course, the MAGA movement and the Republicans, they definitely have their act together when it comes to, trying to put or organize their base. They've been really good at that. Hopefully, actually, I hope not, right? I hope that the Jeffrey Epstein situation actually implodes what's happening over there. But there's no telling what's going to happen, because Trump obviously seems to have 20 lives at this point. But wanted to bring this up because I wanted to bring up the fact that Senator Mark Wayne Mullen and even Senator James Langford, two Oklahoma senators, they will often go on social media. They'll be extremely dramatic, and they never fully contextualize what they're saying, right? Very, very biased reporting. And so, yes, President Biden commuted the sentences of 37 out of 40 individuals who are on death row, but he did that. He could commuted them to life in prison. So these people were not let go, right? They are still in federal prison. And another thing is that this took place on December 23rd of 2024. So the 3 death row inmates whose sentences Biden did not commute were convicted in cases involving terrorism. And one of them was the Boston Marathon bomber. I'm sure a lot of us know about that. But the other ones were the hate crime, the racially motivated crimes that took place. So you have Dylan Roof, who committed the massacre in Charleston, in the Charleston church shooting. That's where he walked into a Black church and started just killing all of the Black church members. And then the other one was Robert Bowers, who was the Tree of Life synagogue shooter in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so, but yes, just wanted to bring that up. Like, always look beyond just what they're saying and think about what they're not saying, because they're usually saying less than what they actually should be saying.
Yeah, and one thing that's become so evident of, MAGA in particular, but especially representatives like this, is, deflection and projection is the entire game. They just want you mentally exhausted thinking about. It's really been back to, again, immigration to some standpoint. It's always so ironic how one of the number one things that conservatives who want to give Trump credit for it do every time there's a part of it that's a little too far is they come back and start referencing Obama and Biden immigration stats, which they never in a million years would have given them credit for back during their administration. Because remember, they just opened the borders and let everybody in. But right now, then it becomes this whataboutism. Well, they deported people too. And it's an intellectual game of gymnastics that just gets exhausting. But like you said, don't get lost in it. I think it's important to focus, on the target of what we're talking about and not let them bring up. And it is important also to acknowledge those wrongdoings. I'm not the type to defend the Democratic Party when it's worth talking about what they did wrong. And I think with a lot of conservatives, especially just average voters, one of the number one things you can do is give that humility that all Democrats are not good. There is a hypocrisy in the party, but let's talk about the difference between people who perform as the hero and aren't doing enough and the audacious heel willing to just take away everybody's rights. And those are both bad, but not the same thing. And I think that's always important to consider.
That's good. So next on the agenda is the Department of Education. As many of you know, the Supreme Court just made a ruling that Trump can pretty much have his way with the Department of Education. So 1,400 people have been let go. I think they have 2 weeks to pack up their desk and leave. And so the reason why I want to bring this up, one, I used to be in education. I was a principal at one time. I was a full-time teacher. And the kids, they need after-school programs. One of the things in Tulsa is that we have a lot of after-school programs. And some of those after-school programs actually use the funding from the federal government to be able to function. And so once the Department of Education is gutted, those programs are at risk. We have special education that's at risk, right? But we also specifically have is the dismantling of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Education. And so you have to think back, and we tried to warn folks, maybe we should have had a live back then. Maybe we should have been doing them every day like we're planning to do now, because clearly the media isn't doing enough to be able to get the message to the people about what's happening across this country. But if the Civil Rights Department, the Civil Rights Department of the Department of Education is dismantled, folks in Oklahoma would have to file their civil rights complaints to someone like Ryan Walters. And I don't think that filing complaints to Orion Walters is going to solve any type of racial situation that breaks out at any type of school, especially when it comes to brown and black children, and for good reason. We've already seen the book bans. We've seen House Bill 1775 pass through the House and through the state Senate with flying colors and signed very quickly. And it has been a burden on teachers to the point to where a lot of them are even leaving the state and not returning. And it's been a burden for, Black children not to be able to freely learn about their history, or just children in general to learn about American history, the feminist movement. There's LGBTQ history, right? The list goes on and on and on. And so if there is a situation where a student has to make a complaint about their sexual orientation, they have to go to the state superintendent with that. They can't go to the federal government. So there's essentially no oversight at this point, which is just really sad. It shows that this country's democracy is being completely dismantled right before our very eyes. But of course, this was their plan in their Project 2025.
Yeah, and I think, mentioning Ryan Walters is a good example, but I think coming back to Oklahoma in 2008 for college, and we were ranked in the top 20 as an education system for our schools across the country. And ironically, Georgia at the time was ranked in the bottom 5 while I was going to school there. And I watched over the last 15 years as Oklahoma fell back to 49th and 50th in some lists of most cases of where our schools rank. And so it's one of those things that anybody nationally that wants to see a example of why just gutting your education budget and privatizing schools is not working, you can look at Oklahoma pretty handedly at this point. So it's super disappointing that the Supreme Court would let him go through with that. Also not super surprising with the dynamic we have on the Supreme Court, but frustrating nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely frustrating. And so I think, with that said, I don't want to leave you guys without hope out there. The call to action is to get involved. You have to show up at your local school boards. You need to know who's running. We have a midterm election that's coming up, and you need to be getting organized right now. You need to be finding candidates who care about children, to help protect them, because they're going to need all hands on deck at this point, especially in states like Florida, states like Louisiana, and states like Oklahoma, and a ton of other states across the country who don't believe in CRT, right? Or a lot of these other important cultural, history lessons that our kids should be learning in public schools. So let's move on to the next thing, because we only have like 10 minutes left. Epstein. I don't know what's going on with the Epstein scandal. I just know that a lot of people are talking about it in the social media lands, and a lot of folks on Substack are talking about it. So the floor is yours, brother.
Look, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on this, but I'm definitely paying attention to some extent. And I also have moles in the QAnon circles, and it's very entertaining watching their mental gymnastics as this all goes down. Again, as you mentioned, this is one of the biggest, I think, kinks in the armor we've seen of like the MAGA cultish mentality that's been just like blindly support him through the most ridiculous things. But this is really one of those moments that they're like, what are you doing? Because for years, they said that they were going to expose these things. And then not only did Epstein, die in prison under his administration, which for some reason kind of got lost in the weeds during the Biden administration by a lot of the conspiracy theorists. But long story short is, again, if you've been living under a rock to some extent or pay attention to more important stories to your life, then I think the simplest thing to catch on to has just happened is after Pam Bondi and the DOJ saying that they were going to go through the files and they were going to release the list and expose all these people, suddenly in the last week and a half, there is no list, like at all. We're just kind of like, oh, well, there was files, but it wasn't actually a list on my desk. And Trump at this point is just squirming a little bit. I mean, he's online telling us to not talk about it. He clearly gave Charlie Kirk a call, or somebody did, to be very clear. Like, Charlie Kirk was all over this topic and then turned around and was like, you know what? I trust them. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But the biggest
thing I've
bombshell,
ever seen.
yeah, and the biggest bombshell for me though is definitely I think the more recent reports, and I think Wired did a really good expose on this, but the footage from the prison, and that it is definitely confirmed to be modified. I think they're saying that 3 minutes are probably missing or edited, and the claim from the administration that I heard was that, well, this was possibly uploaded and then downloaded and then upload again, but it wasn't necessarily edited. And 1 minute disappears per hour from the footage anyway, which is really interesting to hear suddenly. We never heard that, I think, early on when we got the footage to begin with. But I think everybody, is across the board, this is one of those unifying topics that, one, I think anybody that's non-conservative and has been looking at this topic, it's always been one of those things where it's frustrating to see it partisanized. If you really do have empathy for the idea of, people being sex trafficked or children like this, then this is not a partisan topic. It's a power topic, and it's an issue of influence. And making it about Tom Hanks because he got COVID first, or making it about Hollywood elites because they disagree with your politics, is something I never sat easy with, but it is something that is across the board in powerful circles and has been in history for a very long time. So we all want to see this exposed. And it's important to not let them gaslight us right now about what they said they would do, but also the evidence we already have. It's not like anybody who was paying attention objectively didn't see the relationship Trump's had for decades with Epstein, admitted on both sides by him and Jeffrey Epstein. And this really isn't that surprising. It's just a matter of, at this point, what checks and balances are going to be left to actually give us this information so we can actually get some closure on the topic, or is this just going to, disappear under the rug like any other government conspiracy that you can point to in history? So that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. I'm definitely paying attention, but it's one of those things that it's, if not guilty, why guilty shaped? So
Yeah, a hit dog will holler, as they say.
Yeah, so, right.
And they're definitely hollering, or maybe they're trying to silence everybody right at this point to not to find other distractions, of course. I definitely want to give a shout out to some of our Substack followers and some of the folks that are on our Substack who are commenting. So KB, thank you so much. Linda, thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, the last concern is the safety of their slaves. So we're referring back to, if there is a hurricane that comes through there, a lot of people are doubting that they're really going to be treat these people like humans, right? And then, of course, Florida sits on a peninsula.
Yeah.
So you just don't know how fast the storm could gain power. While it's approaching land.
And without lingering too much on, severe weather and climate change right now, but I've been good friends with several environmental directors and the environmental director for Orlando. And these are cities that have high water, high tide areas coming into their sewers nowadays on sunny days, not from rain. And so, again, they know where this is located, and they're also working on contracts in other states, I will add. On that, when it comes to Alligator, Alcatraz, they are moving forward with trying to put these in other states. I know they're looking at Texas. They're looking at Georgia. So we just have to keep an eye on these contracts as they come up. But it's something we have to keep speaking up about for sure.
Wow, that's wild. And she also had mentioned, hell, I'm triggered every second I listen to the news last few weeks over Epstein Gate. Many have been traumatized. I'm one of them. So I completely get it. So y'all, we're about to wrap up. We do have another story that I'd like to bring up. I don't have a slide for it. This is our first time actually going live on Substack at this capacity and just kind of going over a bunch of news stories. And so this one is what do Beyonce, Timberland boots, and bull riding all have in common? And they're all part of a growing movement to spotlight a forgotten piece of American history, the legacy of Black cowboys. These Black cowboys do exist. And actually, the Beyonce concert has been happening all across this country. The Beyonce concert was here in Atlanta this past weekend. And when I tell you that I wanted to go so bad, but could not, because we've had a lot of things happening in our personal and our family life this year. So we were not able to go to the Beyonce concert, but hopefully we will get to go to the future one. But let's talk about these Black cowboys. So from the historic Black rodeos in Oklahoma to modern day efforts to engage Black youth in cowboy culture, the truth is clear. Black history is cowboy history. In our latest article, our latest article on Substack, the history of Black cowboys, Black Wall Street Times journalist Anna Littlejohn explores how towns like Boley and Okmulgee helped shape this tradition, why Hollywood tried to erase it, and how creators today are reclaiming the narrative with films like The Harder They Fall. It's time to saddle up and learn the real story of the American West, one where Black cowboys ride front and center. You can read that at the Black Wall Street Times, and you can read that at our Substack. Well, that's all I have for today. Do you have any other last minute words for our audience?
Just that shameless plug that, you know, it's tumultuous right now trying to keep Black-owned companies in general with DEI under attack, but Black-owned media as we take on topics like Trump and these sort of things. So if you can become a paid subscriber, it is going directly to the newsroom. It is going to these writers, and they deserve it. So if you're listening, please do so. And then at the very end, this will be reposted as an actual post on our Substack. So go back and share it and make sure people hear the word and, you know, keep talking about what's happening and what's important.
That's good. So I'm happy that, let me tell you, Andrew never forgets that part about the plug. So if you look at the bottom of our ticker, you can do $8 a month. You can do $80 for the whole year, or you can become a founding member of our Substack and pay $250. That actually keeps our newsroom going. And we need that because we're actually down $50,000 this year in philanthropic funding. So as he had mentioned, I've been on several calls with other publishers across the country who are definitely taking a hit because of the Trump administration's attack on DEI and CRT and Black history and anything that looks like the America that we want to be. So anyways, please subscribe. We will be forever grateful for you guys. And then, of course, as he had mentioned, you'll get a chance to win a shirt. And perhaps in the future, we'll have some more of those Black Wall Street jackets from Greenwood Avenue that are so hot. And as a matter of fact, I have mine right here.
Oh, yeah.
Put it on. These jackets are super hot.
Nice.
Now, my air isn't fixed yet, but it's cool down here because we have a window unit in, and they're supposed to fix it on Friday. So hopefully I will have air and I'll be able to just kind of, you know, reminiscent of the fall because it's really hot right now in summertime. Well, anyway, folks, we'll see you tomorrow evening at the same time, 5 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget to hit the share and the subscribe button. And if you are able to subscribe become a paid subscriber to the Black Wall Street Times. All right. Peace, y'all.
Bye, everyone.